Hi, my name is Christy Andrade, and I am presenting my Compassion Fatigue Stakeholder Education Plan. Registered nurses, as well as other healthcare employees that work in environments that handle critical patients, are at risk for developing compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is defined as the emotional expenditure of caring, or the stress response that emerges suddenly and without warning, resulting in diminished emotional energy that is needed to care for their patients. This can cause many symptoms that can be both negative to the person and their patients. Education of compassion fatigue, as well as a program implementation, is needed to address compassion fatigue and its symptoms. Phoenix Children's Hospital Cardiovascular Intensive Care Unit provides the environment where compassion fatigue is possible and is where this project will be implemented. If the project outcome is successful, there is hopes that it will become a part of the hospital's culture and grow to other units. My PICO question that is driving my scholarly project is, do CVICU employees that are in direct patient care who receive education and coping skills with peer group sessions and journaling, and comparing to those that do not, demonstrate less compassion fatigue symptoms within a 90-day period? There are many stakeholders that will contribute to my project. The first being the Human Resource Department at Phoenix Children's Hospital. They will be the key stakeholders that allow my scholarly project to take place at the hospital. The Human Resource Department will have to approve possible extra hours and pay for all participating participants. The second key stakeholder is the nurse manager in the cardiovascular intensive care unit. He will also need to approve the project as well as coordinate with human resources on hour allocation for all participants. The key participants for my scholarly project are employees that are at high risk for developing compassion fatigue. These include CV/ICU physicians, nurse practitioners, registered nurses, and respiratory therapists. All of these key participants are surrounded by extremely sick patients as well as their families. They will all have the same role with project implementation. This rule is to journal at least twice a week about their workdays and experiences, both positive and negative ones. They will also be required to take 2 tests to determine if they currently have symptoms of compassion fatigue, as well as participants in weekly peer group meetings. These peer group meetings will be facilitated by myself as well as the CVICU nurse educator. In peer groups, the participants will be asked to speak about their work experiences, stresses, concern, and share their journals. The educator will also help facilitate the peer groups. The clinical educator will be personally taught about compassion fatigue, the importance of journaling, how to give and score the test, as well as how to guide the peer groups. Lastly, the clinical supervisor will be responsible for scheduling the participants. Role in project implementation. As stated in the previous slide, both human resources and the CV/ICU nurse manager are essential in allowing for my scholarly project to take place at Phoenix Children's Hospital. The nurse educator will be a project facilitator, and all other participants will both home journal and participate in peer groups. The theoretical foundation that I will use for project implementation is Malcolm Knowles' Adult Learning Theory and Principles. This theory allows the educator to understand how adults learn best. This theory also approaches adult learning with the view that it is not didactic but collaborative. His 6 principles will guide the way I implement the project. His first principle is that adults are internally motivated and self-directed. As I implement the project, I will develop rapport, provide constructive and specific feedback, give the participants responsibilities that allow them to feel able, as well as show interest in their participation. His second principle is that adults bring life experiences and knowledge to learning experiences. This is essential to my project, for the participants will be encouraged to share work experiences as well as their emotions, feelings, and stresses. The third principle is that adults are goal-oriented. Here I will let them know the goal of the project is to learn about compassion fatigue as well as ways to reduce its symptoms. This allows the participants to have a meaningful experience as well as see change. The fifth principle is that adults are practical, explaining their reasoning to why they are home journaling as well as why they need to share experiences to shed some compassion fatigue symptoms will help promote active participation. Lastly, adult learners need to feel respected. I will make sure all understand that the peer group environment is a safe place to share information and that what is said in the room is kept in the room. One of the most important aspects of project implementation is delivery of the project itself. I must convince both human resources and the CV-ICU nurse manager the importance of my project. This will be done by stating what compassion fatigue is, statistics on its prevalence in units as the CV-ICU, and how it can affect both the staff and their patients. Next, I will convince them that if even one nurse is suffering from compassion fatigue, then there is a real need for this project. In order for my project to have any credibility, I will provide them with numerous studies that are evidence-based on the effects of compassion fatigue, as well as interventions to minimize it. Home journaling will be presented as a big part of the study. Journaling is a form of self-care that has been proven to reduce symptoms of compassion fatigue. Self-care opens up awareness of the potential problems at hand and helps with stress relief, ultimately decreasing compassion fatigue. The next intervention will be to participate in peer groups. Evidence of this success will be presented. The overall implementation schedule of the project will take place over 90 days. This includes journaling 2 times a week for 12 weeks, as well as the 10-day 1-hour peer group session once a week. This will last 12 weeks as well. 2 exams will be given to determine compassion fatigue, one in the first meeting and the second in the last meeting. Lastly, the project will be evaluated as it is being implemented. If there at any time the project needs to be adjusted, it will. At the conclusion of the project, I am hopeful that other ICU departments in Phoenix Children's Hospital will implement the study, as well as continued implementation of this project in the CV ICU. In summary, compassion fatigue is a serious problem that can have costly and negative effects on both healthcare workers as well as their patients. My scholarly project aims on compassion fatigue awareness as well as providing tools to decrease its symptoms. In order for the project to be successful, key stakeholders need to be on board as well as participate in the project. The Human Resource Department at Phoenix Children's Hospital, as well as the cardiovascular intensive care nurse manager, need to be convinced that project implementation is a must at this hospital. Participating stakeholders that drive the implementation are physicians, nurse practitioners, registered nurses, and respiratory therapists that all work in the cardiovascular intensive care unit. The clinical educator will lead the peer group discussions, and the clinical supervisor will schedule them. Malcolm Knowles' adult learning theory and principles will guide how I approach all of the stakeholders. Lastly, I will follow a delivery plan that will allow me to show my study design, evidence-based research, as well as how I will implement this project.